what we're going to talk about during this session today is, first of all, we'll quickly review what's new in Logic Apps since the last integrate. You probably heard about some of those new features that were coming, but we will quickly walk through the investments that we did, and then we talk about what we plan for the next 12 months, and we'll ask you some questions, and hopefully we'll get your feedback, your input on what's important, what's less important, and how you see some of these things working, or how you need some of those things to work for you. All right, so let's see if that works. All right, we have a lot of inputs here. Majority of folks are from Europe. Hard to zoom in, and then yeah, all over the place.
Yeah, there's a couple of crazy people from New Zealand. I don't know why.
And what's, Wagner, do you know what's this small dot somewhere close to Australia?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks. It seems that it works. We can move forward. So what's new? I highlighted some of those things on yesterday's keynote, but we'll again quickly go through the list. So we released Swift MT encoder in decoder to Logic Apps. So it's in public preview now, and we are looking to GA sometime soon. So you can basically take your Swift workloads, implement them on Logic Apps, and specifically if you used to run something on bstock related to Swift, you now have the capability on the Logic Apps as well to bring those workloads to Azure. We released support for functions v4 on the Logic Apps standard, both in Azure and in VS Code or in the local development environment. So which means that people who are like me, who use MacBooks with the new ARM processors, can finally use the local development environment as well. Yes, Martin. And it actually brought a lot of performance benefits too. I mentioned we 35 or so, 30 plus connectors that we released, built-in connectors that we released for Logic Apps standard over the last several months. You can see the list on the screen. I'm not going to go through all of them, but those are all first-party services like Azure Blobs, Azure Table, and so on. Those are some applications like SAP and protocols. So someone, I think, asked about Rosetta.net or tweeted about Rosetta.net. So it is there. It is available. You can use it today. And then Data Mapper that I think we will look at a bit later. So it's in public preview. It's available. You can use it. You can try it. You can provide feedback. As of now, it supports XML and JSON, and we will talk about the future plans in the next slides. XSLT plus .NET Framework support. That's from our bstock migration track, or support of bstock features in Azure Logic Apps standard. So this is generally available right now. You can basically bring your bstock maps that include some custom code, some custom .NET code, and drop and use them as is in Logic Apps standard without rewriting, retesting, or rebuilding anything. We did a bit of simplification on our application insights table schema to make it easier to query interface health data. It's in public preview now, and we're also looking to GA sometime soon. Please give it a try and let us know if that made your life easier as we hoped it would. So new workflow designer is available, generally available for Logic Apps standard since, I think, 2 weeks ago, or about a week ago. So we GA'd it right before build. It's redesigned from the scratch. It's actually rebuilt from the scratch. It's not a improvement or a slight improvement of the previous designer. So it's built from scratch. We did have a demo of the old designer performance versus new designer performance, which I don't think we have it here, but it was kind of interesting demo to watch, because when you open them up both at the same time, so you can actually start working on the new designer, doing a lot of stuff while the old designer is still loading. So the performance improvement there are drastic. So please give it a try, and again, let us know what you think. It's available as GA for Logic Apps standard today, and in preview for consumption. And we support both Portal and VS Code experience. One thing to mention there as well is that this new designer is also open source, so you can actually see the source code, and you can use it, for example, if in your solutions, if you want to customize the Logic App experience for your customers. We have partners inside and outside Microsoft that are doing it today. So they basically use our Logic Apps standard engine behind the scenes, and they take our designer, since it's open source, modify the experience a little bit to highlight some actions, to add actions, or to highlight some walkthrough for their customers, or remove some stuff that seems complicated and so on. And you can drop it as the experience into your web page, or since it's a web-based technology, you can drop it into your website or so on, and provide the customized experience for your customers. And then export to standard that Wagner talked about yesterday. It supports both ICE environments and Logic Apps consumptions. You can take your existing workflow and export them into the Logic Apps standard project in your VS Code. It's available as the extension, as the part of VS Code extension, and it's GA. We provide GA support for ICE clients, and it's in public preview for everyone else, but we are going to GA it.
Yeah, we are in the last stages of the GA, and it's mostly internal stuff to make sure that our support can open the gates for like a whole lot of people working on that, right? But technology here is not changing. Yep. So what you have today is the GA code with a bit more of GA from the process point of view.
Yeah, so soon, weeks, not months or years. I mentioned Azure Integration Services landing zone yesterday. It's available. It's generally available on our GitHub repository. So it provides design guidance and recommendation for how to set up a production-ready Azure Integration Service environment with all the services interconnected and properly configured. It also provides the reference implementation for ARM templates, so infrastructure as a code scripts, and you can basically use them to parameterize and set up your environments in minutes, or kind of modify as you need, add services, remove services, and get it deployed very quickly. And then for those of you who still have to deal with mainframes, we also have support for you coming. The IMS DC connector is in private preview, and there will be more coming over the next 12 months.
Mm-hmm. Before we go, can I ask a favor for you guys? If you see gaps on the floor, just try to close, so people that is there, like craning the neck to see that, can join this side of the room. Yeah.
Thanks, Wagner.
No problem. So we're going to have some space there. Just move. We can continue talking. Don't worry about us. Cool. I don't want to be the responsible for people getting a neck injury inside an IT conference. Cool. You can continue.
There are more seats available over there.
Yeah, there's a lot of seats available there. And you can do that. That works as well.
All right. Let's talk about what's coming next. So I did the overview of Azure Integration Services Unified Experience yesterday. We'll provide a little bit more details today on how the things are going to work, and then we will do the live demo. So if you want to see it actually running live tomorrow afternoon.
No pressure. We're having a live demo tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, it's an internet connection, right? So I know that was Sandra. He would blame Microsoft for being slow, but that's internet connection. We know that. So anyway, disclaimer again, and let me repeat it again. So it's all work in progress. So that may change, right? So this is kind of our current thinking, and we are looking to get your feedback on that. The naming, the design, and everything will still, there's a huge opportunity that will change when we go through the proper release and publication process.
So don't get too attached to the names. That's why it's in quote is working title.
Yeah. So but coming back to the actual concept. So we introduced this new entity in the Azure Integration and in the Azure portal that connected to Azure Integration Services, which we call as of now Integration Space, which is going to be the box, so to say, or the landing zone for this unified experience. So that will provide an overview, an outlook into all integration resources for the specific subscriptions or for the specific space, meaning code, infrastructure, configuration, health, business tracking profile, and everything else. So that's going to be like the entry point into the integration experience moving on. So it will also, as I mentioned yesterday, will simplify, will split or abstract the infrastructure from the integration developers. So we see that the IT organizations or the platform developers in the organization will set up the integration space, will connect it to underlying infrastructure, be that, again, Logic Apps runtime or app service to run workflows and functions, Azure API management instance or workspace inside the instance, service bus or namespace inside the service bus, and event grid. And that will create the capabilities for developers to use. So if a PIM is attached to integration space, that means that developers would be able to deploy API resources to the space, and that the space deployment mechanism will properly orchestrate the actual creation of the actual resources on the IPM environment and provision all the underlying resources for the developer. And it will also, as mentioned yesterday, will become the central management, the central place for the configuration management. Again, we are not hiding the underlying resources behind the space, right? So you will still see your IPM instance, your service bus, your event grid, your Logic Apps, runtime or Logic App standard or service plan. You would be able to go and configure it from the interface, from the resource interface that we have today. But as I mentioned, some of those configurations are common and actually connected, right? So like policies, app configuration, networking, role-based access control, and things like that. It makes sense to provide the unified interface where you can apply the, let's say, role-based access control for resources, and this role-based access control policy will be distributed to the underlying resources like IPM and Logic Apps to, to propagate the rules that you set up on the level of application or on the level of space. So one of the first experiences I mentioned that we want to bring to this space is end-to-end application monitoring. And when we talk about end-to-end, that actually means that if we take some process, some integration flow, that might include, the workflow that does the business job, right, or the business process, like Sandra was just demonstrating. So to implement dynamic ports, for example, from Beanstalk and Logic Apps, with 2 dynamic ports, he had to create 3 different Logic Apps. One for that was orchestrating the actual process, and 2 that were serving the purpose of the dynamic port connecting to the specific database or to the specific resource behind it. So if we talk about the resources, then in terms of resources, we have 3 different Logic Apps that you have to monitor separately today. But if we talk about the process, those 3 Logic Apps work together to deliver on the single scenario, which is, take something and drop it somewhere else. And the unified experience for application monitoring will give you the opportunity to combine those resources into the single group based on those business, provide this business grouping to combine those resources into the end-to-end scenario so that you can monitor it as the single unit and see the health of the whole application, so to say, as the single unit. You'll be able to configure alerts on the resources that are attached to or that grouped into this application, that belong to this application through the same interface, and we will provide a lot of defaults for those alerts and threshold configuration. But the difference between this configuration and, let's say, configuration you can set up today is that you may have a different thresholds or different failure alerts, failure rules when the a resource works inside the application. So let's say if you have a flow and you have one logic apps call and the other logic apps, right? And the other logic apps fail in 20% of the times, right? If you monitor resources separately, so then that's obviously the second resource is red because it doesn't meet any threshold, doesn't meet any SLA, so it only responds 80% of the time. Now, if you implement the proper retry logic on the first one, right, your overall rate of failure may drop into 1% or 0.5% or almost like 0%. So the overall health of application may still be green because you implemented additional retries or additional kind of failure handling, and this is what we want to show when we talk about end-to-end. So it's not about the health of the specific resources, how the overall flow works for you, in combination. And we will provide, I don't know why we don't have a screenshot here for this, but we will provide the view to respond to those alerts quickly and dig deeper into the specific resources when alerts pop up for the overall application and integration space. Beside the alerts, there will be a holistic view of all components that are included into the specific integration application. You can see the screenshot. It's the actual screenshot. It's not a design mockup, and you will see it tomorrow. And from this screenshot, when you can see the overall health of the application, the IT folks would be able to drill down into the details through the different tabs. One thing to mention here is that we are not building, anything proprietary here when it comes to the monitoring. So it's Azure Monitor behind the scenes. So we are, through the interface of integration space, we are actually setting up the proper Azure Monitor configuration for you to set up the alerts, to set up the dashboards, and so on. But the data is still there. It's still available. It's in your subscription. And you can use, for example, workbooks, the built-in workbooks to create a custom reports based on this monitoring data. Mm-hmm. So here's the question that we would like your input on. So when you think about IaaS resources and infrastructure for this end-to-end workflow, right? So the workflow that deliver on one specific end-to-end scenario, they usually deploy it in the same region or they might be spread across different regions.
Oh.
Right.
I think you can keep it coming, but I think it's the overwhelming is what we expected. There is like a stuff on the same region because of affinity and because you wanted to get better latency on that. Yeah, but these 6 people, please come to us after the session, or 7 people, 9 people now. Right? So let's have a little get together and discuss why we need the different, like what's your use cases, what's your scenario for different regions. Because I'm interested to see if on that one you're thinking about DR, so you end up having 2 of the same in different regions, or if it's actually you have part of the workflow running on region A and part of the workflow running on region B. That was our thinking for that question. Yeah. So come back to us later on that. All right, thank you for your votes. Let's move next one. So the other thing that we wanted your input on is that when we talk about the integration space, right? As of today, the work in progress that we have all the applications are all in the same level. So we basically have 2 different levels. One, which is the integration space, which you can, create based on your, cost centers, functionality, like maybe HR applications, right, or financial applications, or East Coast applications versus West Coast applications, or something like that, right? So similarly, how you slice your subscriptions today, for example. So, and then under the integration space, we have all those applications, the end-to-end integration scenarios. So I guess the question here is, do you need another level of grouping? So maybe, the HR applications, and then that would be integration space, and then inside the HR application, there would be payroll applications, and then, vacation applications, or things like that, like more of a folder structures or so on. Cool. That is an interesting one, because the last time that we ran that, I think, on another group, it was a bit different from that. So that is going to be quite useful for the engineering to offset that against the other one.
All right.
Cool.
So the other experience, which is again kind of similar but looks at it from the different perspective, in addition to those end-to-end health monitoring or status monitoring, we introducing the business process tracking into the integration space capabilities. And the business process tracking, I mean, for those of you who worked with BAM, is kind of a similar concept that would allow to define the business process and stages inside this business process, and then collect the data for different stages and provide the interface for business me to see where the transactions are. So as you can see here on the screenshot, it starts from defining the business process. So it's business SME would log in and start defining the stages, adding the actual data that can be collected on each and every stage. So in this case, I have a stage that I call payment process, and I collect employee ID, payroll date, and salary level, for example.
What are the events that are important for the business, not for the technical process?
That's a business process from the business point of view, right? Then we have a developer who would map this business process into the actual implementation. So in this case, we assume that Logic Apps workflows are already up and running, so they're already deployed. And so when a integration developer does the mapping, so they have to select which specific step, which specific action in the Logic Apps implement this specific step in the process. Or, we can consider this specific step in the Logic Apps as the completion of the step of the business process. And the integration developers will be able to use the actual designer that will be loaded in the screen, where they can pick the proper action and use the same expression or token picker expressions and so on that they used to use when they build the actual workflows.
And that's, funnily enough, one example of using the open source designer in multiple ways, because that is not the editor, is another instance of the thing just being used for that purpose.
Yep. And so when the mapping is defined, that actually creates what we call the tracking profile. So then the tracking profile can be deployed to Logic Apps, and the Logic Apps engine will be aware of the tracking that is needed. So it will actually collect the data that is defined in the tracking profile and send this data to the DAX, where without developers actually changing the actual workflow. So there's no need to kind of explicitly emit the data into the system. It will be tracked by, or it will be collected by the Logic App standard engine itself and sent to the data storage automatically. And from this data in the data storage, so the business me will be able to review all the process transactions, and ongoing transactions will be able to visualize them, as you can see on the screen, which steps are completed, which steps are not completed, and then we'll be able to dig deeper into the actual data for the track data for each and every step that we have on the business process. The use case for this is obviously, you have one of the use cases is that you have a business process, business transaction, right? And that is support. So someone calls into support saying, "I just paid for this thing. Why I don't have a shipping confirmation?" Right? So this is where the support or business would be able to go look at the transaction, see where this process is, where it's stuck, and why it's stuck, and then if it's stuck on some of the steps, connect or call the IT support or technical support to figure out why the specific transaction stuck on this or that step. So with
this is inside the business tracking things. There is a lot of other items that we have in backlog, right? So the idea here is what of those items between application monitoring and the business tracking is more important for you on day one, so you can help prioritize the work for engineering. So just move things around to see what you wanted to do. I know that one takes a little bit of time because you move everything and then click OK, but let's give a couple of minutes.
One thing, while you're waiting, one thing mentioned briefly is that the data again will go to DEX, which is your storage. Just bring your own storage, right? Bring your own instance. So we will provide the default interface, so to say, for looking at the transactions. But you have access to the data. You have access to the Kusta. You have access to the workbooks. You can build whatever reports you want on top of this data and provide some custom functionality to your customers as well.
Yeah, because you have access to ADX, similar to the other one that we discussed. You have you're able to create your own workbooks and visualize that data the way you want it.
Did they say DAX? Yeah, it's ADX. I'm sorry. I was thinking about something else. So now, in terms of the how we group things, right? So like when we talked about end-to-end flow and what we called applications, when we talk about the applications or single thing that deliver on specific use case, do you see that IT operators and business me would have a common idea on like how to slice it into applications or different points of view on that? Mm-hmm. And I see it's, yeah, all right.
I can see that we're talking to the techies and the developers that not have that much fun with the business owners.
Yeah, that was kind of expected, but I didn't expect 10 to 1 on that.
Funnily enough, I think, again, the last time that you ran that, we have something much closer together.
Kent, if you are watching us, you are going to have fun with this.
Exactly.
Could be jaded as an audience, we're just intrinsically more bitter.
Yeah. All right, and with this I will pass it over to Wagner.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so in here we're going to start seeing some of the things that we discussed yesterday, but as I said yesterday, I'm going to be a little bit more around the roadmap today, and I'll continue to ask a lot of questions for you, right? So this one is talking about the .NET Framework custom code. As we said before, the idea here is calling .NET Framework from built-in action. So you'll be able to create your own workflow, or create your own custom code and inject that in a Logic Apps without having to need another Azure function or an external resource for that, right? Why we're using .NET Framework to start with? Because we wanted first to unlock all those bespoke migration scenarios. But we're going to see an interesting question coming up on that one. So the idea is going to have two project structure, a workspace with two projects working in tandem, right? One where you write the code, one where you write the Logic Apps, and you're able to work with those two together. Since those two are inside the same workspace, you'll be able to do local debugging. So we're starting debugging from Logic Apps, go to the code, find out what is happening there, and come back. So the debugging of this process is going to be much simpler than you having to go and debug one or debug the other. And as we saw yesterday on the video that demo that Kent recorded for us, you're able to have full support for dynamic schemas, both for inputs and outputs. That means that from an action point of view, when you're designing or implementing the Logic Apps, you're going to have the same first-class experience on the action that you had for any kind of connector that we create, right? To be honest, in some cases, even better, because you designed the experience that you wanted instead of the experience that is given to you by the people that is not used to your process. And finally, you'll be able to run this code together with the workflow in the same app service plan, right? So as I said in the beginning, with that, you don't need to get an external resource, and you don't need to double up in terms of app service plan just to have extensibility for Logic Apps.
And it's also, since it's run kind of almost in the process, so the latency is quite different than calling Azure Functions over
Exactly.
HTTPS.
Mm-hmm.
It's much faster, and it's almost like calling the method inside the same processes.
Yeah, is an in-process instead of an HTTP call. Cool. So, question for you guys. We focus on .NET Framework for obvious reasons, but what other things you want? Yeah. I'll give it until 150, just because it's fun right now. There we go.
No one wants COBOL anymore?
There's other. Maybe that's COBOL in Fortran. Who knows? Cool. So let's go to the next one. So next item on the list is the data mapper that we saw yesterday, right? And the idea of that is like a visual mapping tool that allow us to build in those mappings that traditionally we'll be doing with on Bestock, and you're now able to do that from scratch on Logic Apps. Some of the things you take in consideration here is, one is the visual mapping, right? We have a whole lot of built-in functions that you can use, like I showed yesterday, sum, multiply, concatenation, right? All of those things that help you to do the translation between the things and reach the message on the other side. We supporting today XML and JSON, and we allow you to test your map manually, right? Plus, one thing that is quite interesting that we just touched briefly yesterday is the idea of the map checker. The map is going to be looking at your schema and find out if you actually map everything that is required on those items. And it can give you like the information, say, hey, by the way, you say that you completed the map, but those 5 items here that is required, you didn't map it yet. So less failure at runtime because the map was not fully completed. Some of the features that are coming soon, right? One, we show that how soon it is because we already have a working prototype for that, is the ability to do custom extensibility. So now we're not only using the built-in functions, but you should be able to create your own functions. On that one, as we said, it's going to be focusing on XSLT and XPath 3.1 today because of the XSLT 3 and XPath 3.1. Because what we see so far is most of the scenarios where we're using code before are now solving by that, right? And then we're going to get feedback from you to find out if you needed to invest in adding custom, literally custom code for those snippets. So focusing on XSLT for now. The other thing that is coming soon is the support for CSV format, right? Which is like the biggest next item after XML and JSON. The CSV, the items is something that a lot of people use, it, especially when you're thinking about the legacy scenarios. Stuff that is on the roadmap for that is automated test experience. So not only you would be able to do manual testing, but you will be able to get a set of automated tests. So you have different scenarios and run automatically after you make changes on the map. Add that to the portal experience because right now we focus on VS Code, right? And infuse a bit of AI. Like later on, we still like looking at what is the options that you can have of that. But it's the idea of having an assistant for your mapping that understands both of the schemas. So those are the items on the data mapper.
Just a question.
Yep.
Yesterday you showed us how to do the mapping from XML to JSON. Is it also vice versa?
Yes. Like it's in any to any on that one. XML to XML, JSON to JSON, all the permutations.
And the code behind it is XSLT?
It's still XSLT for all of them. So
Perfect.
it doesn't change. Today when you work in XML, you're using XSLT. When you're using JSON, you're using Liquid, yep. Right? Like when you're running that on the current transformation, you have to get different ones. Yes. On this one is a single data mapping action that gets the map because it's always going to be XSLT, and it understands the output from that.
So in the code behind you are doing some sort of transformation from JSON to XML before doing before running the XSLT in the Logic App, right?
Now
Can you repeat the question?
So the question here is like if we're doing behind the scenes any kind of transformation from XML to JSON or to JSON to XML to run that, I think is we doing that transformation for XML, right? But transparent for you because it understands how to make the translation on the way out.
Yeah, I mean, generally XSLT is used for XML.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if run the data mapper, and we want to map it from the destination to the destination format. In that case, as JSON, it will not be processed in XSLT as JSON, right? It will be transformed to XML before running the XSLT.
I'm pretty sure that's the case, but transparent for you, right? Before you would have to explicitly make that transformation. On this case, the tool takes care of that for you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because you have the schema, so you don't have any issues with that.
Exactly.
Because, like JSON array is one of the common
Mhm.
problems when we use the
Yes.
function.
And that's why we're going to a schema-first approach, because since you understand the schema, we were able to do those translations. Rick, and I'll go there.
Just to drill in on CSV, do you mean just comma separated, any character delimited, or flat file?
I think flat file. Mhm. Cool.
Don't forget to repeat the questions, Wagner.
Okay, sorry. He was asking if it's like when you talk in CSV, you're still talking about just comma delimited or flat file in general? Flat file. Mhm.
Will you support multi-message transformation, one-to-many, one-to-many?
Okay, so multi-message transformation, if you're going to support or not. Today, you would be able to do that with one external step, right? Because behind the scenes, multi-message transformation is a wrapper with two messages. So we allow you to, as long as you provide the schema like this, then it would be doing. But on the roadmap is the ability for you to provide the two different schemas and we combine. Cool. The next item that we're going to focus is a bit on the industry verticals, right? So what we have in the roadmap here, the main one is the revamping on the integration account. And we take in consideration a lot of the feedback that we get from customers around. We have limits on the integration account, on the message size. We have like the problems with the structure is too flat. I'm not able to apply RBAC on different levels, right? We don't have VNet support for integration account. And taking all of those things in consideration and applying that to the new integration SKU. So you're going to have a lot more control on that because you're going to own the storage. We're going to provide the resource, but you bring the storage for that. And because of that, like all the things around compliance and security, like retention, the CMK, you're able to apply because you're applying to our storage, right? The same way, because you bring your own storage, you're going to be able to do a lot better DR because you can define the DR at the storage level. And looking into end-to-end tracking for the business-to-business transactions, the things like the DDI and the partner agreements, right? And talking about the partner agreements, trying to improve the experience for onboarding the partner and to test the connectivity. And bring us some templates for B2B partners. So if you have like a partner that looks 30% the same because like at least your information on that agreement is yours, right? You don't have to go and set up everything again on each one of the agreements. We can templatize and make it easier for you. We are getting interest from the private preview. So if you're interested on getting into the private preview for the integration account, you can go to aka.ms/integration account-preview and submit interest, right? From there, we're going to be get in touch when you're ready for that. Yes?
There was a preview. Do you have any kind of thoughts on where it will land in terms of like on pricing? Is this kind of more like on the premium side, or do you find some
above my pay grade, but Slava can talk about that.
It's a bit too early to answer, but we will provide more details when we get closer to public preview and NGA.
And just for the audiences, like the question was about if you have an idea of the pricing yet. Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah. Okay. 2 points I have. The first one. For when you work with Logic App in app service environment, we have the issue about the network limitations because the Logic app is located within the VNet. So you have to be within this VNet to be able to run the or do the development for the Logic app. The thing is, I believe that it will be more beneficial for the developer and to improve the developer's experience in that case, because what we do, we create actions, and these actions are created not automatically, I mean, not directly within the VNet. It will create the Logic app actions, and then it's not the runtime. Here we are just talking about the design. So it will be more beneficial for the developers to be able to do that, even though that they are not on the same VNet. That is the first point.
Just so as I understand, you're saying from a design time point of view,
Yeah.
you would be able to point that to an integration account, even if it's not on the same VNet?
I'm not talking here about integration account itself. I'm talking about the Logic app itself. If you, especially now when you are talking about the new designer that you implemented before, and I'm pretty sure it's the same case for the new designer today, that if you are dealing with VNet or app service environment, because everything is located within that VNet on the app service environment, in that case, when you deal with the Logic app and the storage account, if you are not part of that VNet, you will have issues in the designer.
Yes, okay.
Yeah,
Understand.
like for instance, if you create an HTTP trigger there, so you will not be able to see the URL immediately unless you are part of that VNet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the other point is, I think with this data mapper and the XSLT3, I think it's time to park Liquid compared to the possibilities that you can do with XSLT, especially because what you have in Liquid today in the Logic app, I don't know if you have updated that recently, but it was a bit late from the Liquid.NET version, the recent one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the data mapper is going to be focusing just on XSLT, right? We're not going to be working on Liquid because it's going to be abstracted for you as a visual map, and we deal with the technology behind the scenes. For the Liquid, for the legacy cases, is something that we're tracking is on the backlog, but we don't have an ETA to like update the version. But in the end, because it's something that needs to be deployed and tested, we always might have a lag between latest version and what is supported on the tool. So totally understand on that. Just 2 seconds on the other one. I think is I understand the frustration on inside the VNet, and exactly because of that we're trying to improve in local environment development experience. So you don't have to develop on the portal and suffer that part of the problem, because sometimes you as a developer shouldn't have the permission on that environment, but you force it to develop there, right? So that's where we're trying to bring a lot of other improvements on the local experience. So you're able to do the things locally and just push as deployment.
Exactly, and I'm not going to talk about DevBox here.
All right.
One last point, I just remembered, this is very important because recently I was dealing with big files, reading them from on-prem. So in this case, you have either on-premise data gateway, or if you are using app service environment, there are the new connectors today that you can use them. Both are limited. On on-premise data gateway is limited to 30 megabytes. The new connectors are limited to only 200 megabytes. It will be more convenient that we can have an action to read the files as streams. So we can specify the offset and the buffer that we are going to read from that file. In that case, no matter how the file size is, we are able to read it within a loop in the Logic app. Or if that is not possible, I wish that the custom code or the custom extensions that we can create in Logic apps are allowed to access the files from on-prem and reading them with the permissions, of course.
That's a good point. I think as custom code might give you that ability because you're able to set up the stream. I'll take that one offline of you, just in terms of timing, because we already started late. I can see that I might end up leaving here 6 o'clock again, and I don't want to do that, right? So let's go really quickly from the items here. When you're thinking about EDI, and in this case, specifically the integration account, like how you see SMEs doing that onboarding. Outside the portal on something different, on VS Code, on the portal itself as part of the tooling. So give it just another 2 minutes because we know that we're quite late. And when I say 2 minutes, I mean 30 seconds.
What do you mean by partner, Wagner? Trading partner for the integration account or development partner?
No, the trading partners. It's like it's a setup of the onboarding of trading partners on this case, because it's on the integration account setup. But thanks, Rick. Cool. I think we have enough information here to help Divya on that. You're a bit late. And I'll skip that one because it's going to need some time for you to start writing what you didn't see on the ADI scenarios. But if you didn't see on that slide something that is a burning need for you, come talk to us after the presentation. Cool. So let's talk about the developer experience, because I still have like 4 or so questions for you on that one. And quite quickly, we discussed that a little bit last time. The whole idea of the developer experience roadmap here is focusing on 3 areas at this stage, right? One is improving the onboarding of new developers and the onboarding of new existing projects. Then making sure that the implementation of those logic apps, that's exactly what you're talking about, on a local environment is simpler, especially when you're thinking about all the configuration that you needed to do, and making changes on the configuration, it not breaking down the local experience while you're doing that, and improving the automation of the application deployment, right? A lot of people already kind of mastered that, but it's still a lot of paper cuts for you to go from a local environment to an automated deployment because of those interdependencies that we have. Right, so when you're thinking about onboarding developers, what we have that's coming next. One is going to be simplifying the VS Code installation. Today we already have some of that work in place. If you click and install the VS Code extension, it installs all the other extensions that are required, so you don't have to keep track on that. But one of the things that we're not doing is the ability to look into all the non-VS Code dependencies like the core tools or .NET Core, and allow you to know from the tool, do you have that installed or not? And if you don't have that installed, guide you through the installation, instead of you go through 30 pages of documentation, because as a developer, the first thing that you do is ignore the documentation, right? We know. And the other thing that you already see on the custom code, but you're going to start to get that through other things, is the improvement of that file structure. So the thing is starting to look more like a solution where you have a workspace, and inside that define the areas for your infrastructure as code scripts, for your tests, for your custom code, etc. So we have better guidance from the start what to do. So all of that is work in progress, right? And we're going to be getting things appearing in the next 6 months or so. On the roadmap, one of the things that we are looking at, and we still needed to get a lot more feedback and think about that, how we do it properly, is the integration between Logic Apps applications in the portal and source control, right? The reason why we're still looking into that is like, let's make sure that local development is sorted first, and then find out what is going to be the needs for the portal to make sure that we work on both of them. Then the next area of focus is implementing workflows. The first thing that we are trying to do, and it's like we're working right now on that, is better the management of those metadata files. Connection.json, that depending on the type of connection, you have different ways to parameterize, or no parameterization at all, which makes it harder for you to go to the next step, that is automation, right? And from the parameters JSON point of view, make sure that you have local versus cloud, and if you're changing things there, again, doesn't break your local experience. On the roadmap, we have two things. One is the better error management and the proactively identifying things that might break at runtime. Instead of it looks perfect on design, you click on F5, it doesn't load, or it breaks, right? So getting a bit more proactive, using the IDE as an IDE to starting to give you all those hints. And the other thing is like a self-contained mock and unit testing framework that you can use to automate your testing of your work locally, but also because you have that framework portable in a way, implement that inside your automated deployment. Then, talking about automated deployments, right? The first thing that we're doing right now is like to help people to get ready to work is the generation of infrastructure templates like your connections.json, especially the Azure connections. That is the one that is harder for you to understand and create, and the application itself. Because if you have that available as part of the project, you should be able to, together with the CI/CD pipeline generation from the tooling, getting everything ready. Once you push to the source control, you'll be able to start deployment quickly.
So one thing I did notice, when the Logic Apps standard came in on the preview, the workflow resource provider was capable of querying the workflow JSON that was deployed inside a workflow app, but it was a read-only operation. Is there any possible purview for that being able to do perhaps patch operations where you're not going to necessarily interested?
I think, Rick, I think we have to take that one offline because that one is going to be a bit deeper on the discussion. But just for the public, we're talking about are you able to write or update workflows directly from the API? And we don't have that support today for some reasons, right? It's something that we study, but we needed to take that one probably offline. On the roadmap, one of the things that you are planning to work really soon as well is a first-class build and release tasks for both DevOps and GitHub Actions. So instead of you having to understand all the scripts that create that CI/CD pipeline, we encapsulate that on a build action, a release action, and then in between those things, you can start your unit test. So before that, your static code analysis and things like that. And one thing that is super important for the enterprise solutions is making sure that we take advantage of app services for zero downtime deployment scenario. So when you deploy, is through the pipelines, it try to use these slots and things like that. So you have a zero downtime, right? So those are the things that are in the roadmap. I think we're running out of time for questions, but just look at try to find me the offline. Ah, it's you. We're going to see like 100 times between now and later. So from a questions point of view, just so that we close here, again, we have some ranking, right? And most of those items that we hear, all those items that we have here is items that I touched base a minute ago. What we wanted to find here is which ones we should be focusing first.
This is the last one, right?
Yeah, we have like I think we can stop on this one. There is like a couple of questions, but we're running a lot of our time.
All right.
I'll give the 2 seconds on this one.
I have a little stretching exercise at the end of the session. So can I ask how many of you feel comfortable putting together ARM or biceps templates for DevOps? Can you raise your hand? Yeah, feel comfortable, know how to do it, are not afraid of doing it, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then the other question, so how many of you would prefer not to deal with ARM or biceps when you deploy your Logic Apps? Mm-hmm. All right, thank you.
We needed a picture of that. Okay, I will skip those ones, right? Because we definitely are running out of time. And just before we go, just a quick notice. On 22nd of June, we're going to have like a Logic Apps Aviators Day, and that is like going to be pretty much powered by the community. We have like MVPs and non-MVPs doing presentations on all different areas. You can go and see the list of speakers and the list of the sessions, and we're going to be publishing the agenda there. All of that is just going to be streamed on YouTube, so there is no need of registration. Just needed to put a notification reminder so you go and enjoy the show. Okay, and with that, I think we way past time. So thank you so much for the patience, especially the Ko-Fi down there. And let's talk offline if you need it. Thank you very much.